Hello, this is Joe Peters, and welcome to MomFit with Joe Peters and the Spanglish and World Network and the H.E.R Network and Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective iOS stores and Android devices. While you are downloading the app, make sure that you read, rate, and leave a comment. The app is free. The Single TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all smart TVs since 2016. Welcome to this beautiful episode. I'm excited to be talking about a topic that is very close to my heart and having a beautiful and amazing guest to help us to go deep into that magic of how we can prepare as moms to that topic. And the topic is perinatal mental health and how we can work in something that I love that Tina works on, and that is, I know that you are going to get a little resistant when I said this, but how we can be a little more selfish. Yeah, I say it. I say it. I say it. It's okay that we as moms be selfish. So Tina is going to be talking with us about all of that. Tina is a certified life and mindset coach and the founder of Selfish Mama. Woo, woo, woo. We need a selfish mama in every town, in my opinion, but we will go deeper with Tina. Her her struggles with mom guilt and work-life imbalance led her to pursue a more flexible career as a life coach. But life coaching proved to be more than just a new career. It completely transformed her belief and her approach onto how to live and parent her kids. She now actively creates a life that reflects more of her, not less, and no, it's a significant factor in her mental wellness. She lives life on her terms and is dedicated to helping other mamas to do the same. Her life currently includes homeschooling, hat off to you, to her teen daughter, amateur nature photography, and a lot of coffee. So, Tina, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am honored and happy to have you here talking about this topic. And I want to start by saying thank you for being a pioneer and a beacon of light into this topic that we need so desperately. But unfortunately, like I was saying it from your bio, from guilt and shame, not a lot of people talk about because we are being taught by society, by a patriarchal environment in some cases, that being selfish as a mom is something really bad. So I'm looking forward to start this chat with you, and I would love for you to get us a little bit more about who you are and how things start evolving for you, and maybe we will take it from there.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And, I do think that it's kind of a taboo topic. So I love the fact that you have created a space to be able to talk about it and introduce it and hopefully open eyes a little bit more on it. So, I think that most moms experience the mom guilt and the work life imbalance at some point, right, in their motherhood, because that transition into motherhood is incredibly difficult, as is, just having more and more children, right? It's just a strain on our lives and our schedules. And, I was a working mom and, long story short, I just was miserable in my job. And I thought that the answer was more time at home with my baby, and so having to leave her and take her to daycare every day and then work a full day and come home, it felt like it was taking an incredible toll on me. And I felt like my job, in essence, was a thief of time. If I could just get that time back so that I could apply it to the things that matter more to me, then I would be happy. And so there was just a lot of guilt about not spending enough time with my daughter. And um, to be quite frank, not being the mom I wanted to be. If we can just be honest, that happens because, especially when we're working or just overextended, right? Even if you don't have an out of the home job, you can still be really overextended at home with all of everything going on. And so, and two, there's so many people, whether you work out of the home or not, you volunteer, right? There's just so many things that can weigh on us and our responsibilities throughout the day. So it was really a struggle of mom guilt and work life imbalance that really would not let me go. Like I would try to figure out how to be okay with it, and it just wasn't working. It would always just keep surfacing. And so I just eventually, went down the path of becoming a life coach. And that's when everything changed.
And I love that because it's also you uncover another taboo, right? And that is, God forbid it, we admit that we are not being a good mom or the right mom for our kids. And that is such a, like, almost like the antichrist. Like, it's something that creates so much scare that even when we are feeling it, we don't feel empowered to talk about it and say it. And what that does is keep us in this cascade. And we'll share a little bit of my experience. Unfortunately, I have a very traumatic fourth trimester, and part of that was due some refined sugar that I was having. I get really deep into depression and anxiety, and like you, I get to a point that I was feeling like I'm not the best mom for my kid. I'm not being tolerant. I'm being exploding. I'm being yelling to my 3 week old baby, and it was challenging because then at that moment you still have all the society pressure of what kind of monster you are. You need to do better. And because of all that pressure, we are not able to say what you are saying. Hey, I'm feeling that I'm not being the mom that I want to be. And then have this help and the support from people like you, from people like me, to actually say, okay, that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Very clearly, that doesn't mean that you don't love your child. That doesn't mean that is wrong, something wrong with you. That does just mean that you are here, and then we need to figure out a way to take you from there to what you were saying, getting to a point that you are actually satisfied and fulfilled with who you are and the kind of parent that you are. So thank you so much for that. And the other thing that interests me about what you were saying is, again, a lot about that social pressure in two ways. The first one is, if you're working, then it's almost like you have to split yourself in two. So you feel guilty because you're not with your kid, but you also want your career. So we keep going into that concept of I cannot have it all. And that create that holdingness of, okay, if I want to be in a career, then I should not be missing my kids and feeling guilty because that is what I want. And then if I do, then maybe I don't belong to a career. But also for a stay at home mom, that, like, this one probably, I'm also a full time work mom, and I know working moms need a lot of help, and I work a lot with them. And the stay at home moms, it blows my mind how much less support they have from their partner, from their family, because they're like, it's almost like, if you are working outside home, then you have a little bit, not much, but a little bit more of sympathy because you're working outside home. But if you're a full time mom at home, it's almost like everybody's like, oh, but you don't work. You work a lot,
Yeah.
and need that help too. So I love what you are saying, and how you are sharing it. Let me ask you something about what we are going to be talking. In your experience and what you work is, what is that connection between perinatal mental health and postpartum mental health, and how we can start preparing ourselves and our inner circle to have a successful mental health and journey in motherhood, even when we are still pregnant?
Mm. I absolutely love this question because one of my biggest like awarenesses, I guess, when I became a mom was how much it changed me.
Mhm.
I think we know, right? Like, we're not dumb. We go into motherhood and we know that it will change us. But the books that are available are all about our changing baby, right? And how to take care of the baby and how to tend to our child. And and perhaps there are books available. I didn't see them, and even if they were available, they weren't as widely recommended as the typical books, right, for the child. And so I think the answer to that is really things like this, right? Like watching TV shows about, you know, postpartum and perinatal mental wellness, right? Being able to talk to moms directly, creating a circle of women who are authentic and will share with you the realities of motherhood, right? And you can then learn from them the the lessons learned about how you are going to be impacted, how you might be impacted, so that you can be proactive in creating a circle of support. I mean, that is really, for me, if that's what, if that is the guidance that I would have had before I became a mom, then I might not have struggled so much and thinking that all of these external issues were just all of these fires that I just needed to fight, constantly. And I would have known, okay, this is just part of the progression. And this is a normal part of the transition. And I feel more equipped to address those because I have this support system around me.
Wow. I love it. And I cannot agree more with you. And that is something that is part of my mission on life with MomFit is taking almost like the romanticism that we have when we are pregnant of this is natural and I'm gonna just push my baby and then I'm gonna just be completely in love with my baby and everything is going to flow good because that is the only thing that we see in freaking movies
Yeah.
and in Instagram, and the only thing that unfortunately a lot of the people around us show us because even when they are close friends, sometimes they are also ashamed of what they are living, so they don't share, even if it's our family. So I know that because for me it was the same. I said like if I was able to prepare, and that is one of the things why one of the reasons why I created MomFit. If I was able to prepare for postpartum and for my life as a mom with a baby as good and as deep as I prepared for my pregnancy and my birth, like my story will be completely different because the other thing that I agree with you, we have only mainly two streams of information. One, like you were saying, everything about how the baby changed and the milestones of the baby when the baby's born, and then the other one is for you to prepare for pregnancy and what you eat while you're pregnant and how to move and how to prepare for birth. But then there is a big gap into what happened to mom, what happened
Mhm.
to mom emotionally, what happened to mom mentally, what happened to mom when she's sleep deprived and is having breastfeeding issues, or so many of those things. And I agree with you that I love how you are saying be prepared for what might happen to you, because that is another pushback that some people talk a lot, like, oh, but you are preparing for the worst case scenario and you need to be positive. And I am the most positive person in the world. I totally am, but I love something that says expect the best and be prepared for the worst. So
Mhm.
being positive doesn't mean that you don't have to have enough information to know, and I love how you put it, what might happen. Because the reality is, I can be super positive, and if I prepare with somebody like you to know what may happen, if some of that happen, it's not going to hit me like a wall of bricks in my head, because I will be like, oh, I already knew that this may happen. These are the tools that I can use. This is the people that I can use. I'm gonna call Tina. I'm gonna call Joanna, and it's a win-win situation. There is nothing that you can lose as a mom. If, in the other hand, I learn about what may happen and doesn't happen, then I could even have a higher level of gratitude to say, oh, wow, I'm being so lucky that all the things that I learned that may happen didn't happen. So I don't think that there is any negative side of what you are saying of preventively learn about those things, have a plan, and be prepared for that. So I love that. Let's gonna talk a little bit about how self 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 self-helpness can be bad for us and our children. And I want to say that it's mind-blowing how you are working around this path, because for generations that is what we see, right? We see with our moms, with our grandmoms, with our great moms, their entire life was measured, the success in their life was measured almost into how much they sacrifice for their family, into how much they sacrifice for their children, into how much they give everything and beyond that they have to their children. And that is what we as girls grow up looking and seeing. So talking about this is a very nice yin and yang perspective of this is everything that you are hearing in your life, and I will show you the other side. This is how bad that could be for you, your kids, and your family. So let's gonna talk about that.
Yes. You know, I absolutely adore this because this is what I learned most when I started embarking upon this, which is they do not have to be mutually exclusive. Selflessness and selfishness are societally pinned as opposites, right? And so if we're not the selfless mom, then we're being selfish and how dare we have children, all that. Um, I think selfishness is a gateway to selflessness. So I'll explain what I mean by that. You mentioned historically, our lineage is full of stories about self sacrifice for our children. And there are many reasons that a family would do that. There's still many reasons that we would even do that still as moms. Like I would sacrifice my life in a second for my child, right? You would, almost every other mom would, right? So it's not like I'm seeing some kind of danger presented to my kid and I'm like, no, I'm going to save myself. That is not what we mean here, right? What we mean here is it's really the awakening of the self. It is the true realization that we can and should exist in our own lives. Us. We are
Like with
allowed
goosebumps.
we are allowed to. We, just like you said, that messaging of sacrifice, I think has, for lack of a better term, kind of poisoned our brain and given us these mental messages, these silent drivers of how we lead our lives. And so when we do sacrifice, it can be beautiful, but it can also be toxic because we might be doing so out of resentment, out of obligation. And I'm going to be honest with you, I would so much rather be selfless and give when I truly want to, under the circumstances that feel true for me. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Um, One is, when I was struggling with my job and just feeling like there was something that had to be fixed, and the only thing that I could kind of pinpoint was my time, right? Because I felt like that was the answer. My head told me that was the answer. Um, and I eventually saw my life through the lens of my daughter, right? Like I wondered how inspired she would feel to go get a job and have a career and also be a mom if she had me to look at. What vibe was I giving off about going to work? How excited was I to contribute to the world in that way? Or was I barely making it through the day? Was I kind of cursing my job every single day? Was I calling it the thief, right? Did I dread Monday mornings, I didn't want that to be the experience of my child. And so if we don't want that experience for our kids, even for them to feel when they get older, what can I do right now to kind of model the potential and the possibility for how beautiful life can be? So so that was one dynamic where, okay, what can I do? How can I live a life that's really exciting for me? And that is a beautiful way to give to my child, right? It's not just about me. Um, and a really good example that might relate to a bunch of people is, we've all had those times when our kids' school has asked for our contributions, like for a fundraiser, right? And so let's say that there was this list of things that they want or need. And let's say one of them's cupcakes. So let's just roll with this example for a second. You may be someone who is a terrible baker, and you're like, "You trust me, you don't want my cupcakes." Right? I cannot sign up for cupcakes because that is just not my zone of genius. I'm gonna have to go buy some cupcakes, right? You decide that you need to outsource that because you are just not gonna make cupcakes. But if there was a mom in, the child's classroom who is a baker, she may be incredibly delighted to create cupcakes and provide them, right? Just that example alone shows you how selfishness can contribute to selflessness, right? And in an authentic way. So that is really what it means to be selfish. It is to give yourself permission to exist in your own life and to really raise your awareness and consciousness around the energy you bring to your circumstances and your relationships and your experience of the world. Don't we deserve that?
Absolutely. And I love how you say that by being selfish, I am selflessness. Because, and I was actually talking with a mom this past week about that, because she is one of those caregivers. She cares for everybody. But she's struggling to take care of her. She's struggling to never have time to make the meals, never have things like that. And then we were talking about that, and there was a point that I say, how will you feel when your daughter get to a point as a mom that is doing exactly what you are doing? Because is this her helping you? Is this serving you? And she start with tears saying, no, this is creating a lot of pain because I've been serving so many other people. My health is in trash, my body's in trash, I don't like how I look, I don't like how I feel. And then I make that connection with her and say, like, how will you feel if I could take you 20 years in the future and then you see your daughter doing that, taking for everybody else, taking care for everybody else, doing that, and she start crying and say, like, oh my God, that will break my heart. And I say, and then I say, because you will and then we were talking about it, and then I said, like, the reality is our children learn from what we do, not what we say. So we can verbally keep telling them, oh, you need to take care of you, you need to do that. But if they grow up seeing mommy running to the end, running to the floor, not taking care of her, being completely depleted, having everybody else priorities first, what they are going to learn, don't matter how many mantras we told them, no matter how much we repeat them every day, otherwise what their brain is going to capture is, that is how I need to be, I need to also do that. So actually it's brilliant what you are saying, because it will create a lot of ease in some moms who say, like, oh, but I don't like to be selfish. Well, what about if you need to be selfish in order to be selflessness with your children, and make sure that your children don't repeat your pattern? That the reality is, like Tina, like me, I don't know any mom, and maybe if you in the audience know one, I would love to meet her. But I don't know any mom that is going completely into that selflessness of not taking care of herself, of not putting her oxygen mask first, and is still super happy and fulfilled and feeling her best life. Like normally, what that does is what Tina was saying is start feeling the tank of resentment, and then the of bitter and anger. And then one thing that we are getting a little bit on the tangent here, but I think that is worth it for moms, especially our moms to be, because our show is for moms to be and new moms. The other pattern to understand is how much of that selflessness is being done, like Tina was saying, from a true place of love and wanting to. And so, how much of that is being because is what I have to do, and because of that, then becomes a weapon against our children later on, where we actually almost pass a bill of making them then feel guilty because everything that we are doing. So it can, that selflessness can start becoming a tornado of very toxic relationships and interactions that are going to only hurt us. And the reality is they're going to hurt the people that we are in theory doing this for, that is our children.
Exactly. And it's really it's reminding me of a quote that I really love by Dan Siegel, which is the environment creates the mind and then the mind creates the environment. And really the way that I interpret that, of course, is that, when we're kids, we get all of this messaging given to us, whether it's overt because we're using our words and telling our kids what we value, our culture, traditions, expectations, whatever it is. But there's so much subtle messaging that our brain takes in because of our environment and because of the people in it. And, like you're saying with your client, it's one of those things where you're so beautifully being able to support her in the transition that Dan talks about, because now her mind gets to create her environment. But it's such a challenge, right? Because we have to be able to give ourselves permission to break free from the identity that we held, that oftentimes goes unspoken. We don't even realize that that's like our operating system in the world. And then when we start to realize it, that's step number one, of course. But then after that, that's where the work comes in, to be able to start letting those expectations fall away and to be able to choose, create with our mind the environment that we want to live in and create for our kids.
I love that. So let's gonna talk a little bit more into what are some of the tangible ways that both us as moms, and I will even say the ways that us as moms, our partners, if we have a partner, and our kids benefit from us and our partner to be selfish parents, and
Uh,
how we can start showing. And this is something that some of you are like, well, I'm pregnant, or my baby's a newborn, and these two crazy ladies are talking like, I will not be able to do that until my kids are 4 or 5 years. No, mama. One of the things that we learn now with research is your baby, even in your womb, is learning. And it is actually some of your DNA cells are getting into your baby, and your baby's DNA cells into you. So, all of this that we're talking with Tina, you can apply ASAP right now. Even if you're pregnant, just the fact of you taking care of you will start creating that. When you have a newborn, even if your newborn, you think that your newborn don't understand, your newborn will feel your energy, will feel your vibration, and will feel if you are coming to take care of him or her from a space of having your cup full or from a space of depletion. So let's gonna talk about that a little bit, Tina, and then what are some of those benefits from us, and benefits, and then how we can start explaining to the kids, because that is the other thing around society. I would love to hear your opinion. We always teach them that being selfish is bad,
mhm.
right? So when we are in a playground, or when we are, even when they are baby, we're like, oh, let's share. That is one of the first concepts that we uh, invite them to learn of sharing, but that is good. And trying to do that, we also by default unfortunately teach them that being selfish is not good. Actually, I had with my toddler an experience where I saw that, where he didn't want to share something, and my initial instinct was asking him to share. And I was able to calm myself and say, it is okay. It is okay if you don't want to share right now. And
Mhm.
it was my blowing. My husband was looking at me, and I was like, I don't want to. I want to teach him the values of sharing, but I also want to teach him that he needs to feel confident enough to do what we are talking about, of saying, like, right now, I don't feel like sharing. Right now, I'm feeling to be selfish, and that is also okay.
Mhm.
So we're gonna talk about what are some of those benefits, tangible benefits.
Yeah. So I love your example because it was actually one that I was going to bring up. So I'm so glad that you did because, when my daughter was younger, I wasn't in the space of, inspecting my beliefs and being able to kind of question what I thought about sharing and how that might impact, her sense of I have to give up something for someone else to enjoy, even though I'm not done with it. Right. So I think that that's a really powerful shift that I've heard a number of parents are making now, which is, if as an adult I'm not going to be forced to share yet, then why should we necessarily force our children to do that? So I think it's just like in your example, it's something that we have to experience ourselves and, decide based on the um, circumstance about whether we can encourage our child to share, pass along a toy, or keep it for themselves, right? But you just so beautifully articulated too with that example the a benefit of being selfish because when we can start to question it for ourselves, whether we're doing it for ourselves or and doing it to help our children start to break down those um, those narratives that aren't accurate. Just because selfish has a negative connotation in the dictionary does not make it true. Self, me, you, just self, and ish, which means a likeness to, should never have been defined as something as bad. I want to have a life that is in likeness of me. I want to live in likeness of myself. That just means to me, it means living an authentic life. And I want to be able to explore whatever the potential is for that to be true in my life. So for me right now, it is me having a job where I get to work from home. I get to have more time with my family. I'm also homeschooling. I get to have a job that I really light up about. Just like you, to be able to support other women in creating a life that they love is like one of the biggest gifts in the world. So when I am able, listen up, mamas, when we are able to do something with our time that literally energizes us and makes us feel fulfilled and aligned with our purpose, then we are much more apt to be able to show up for our kids as the mom we want to be. We didn't have our energy drained because we were exhausted from our job. We were able to be fulfilled and even energized by it, right? And so it's almost unquantifiable the benefits of being selfish. because it does not have to be at the detriment of others. It literally is in service of others, of those that we love. So, the another benefit of being selfish is, okay, this is possibly a hard one, and it may be a little bit of a more difficult one for those mamas who are pregnant and don't yet have babies in the world, but creating boundaries. We deserve to be able to know what we will and won't tolerate, what triggers us, what we might need in order to address that, right? And create boundaries of protection for ourselves, right? Um, and when we do that, we are then no longer, for lack of a better term, needy. We don't need someone else to behave in a certain way, to do something that then makes us feel better. We are our own self advocate. We are able to ask for what we need, create protection and boundaries for ourselves and our lives. And that allows us to show up in every single relationship as our most truest self, the most authentic that we can be in any given moment. I mean, I, I can't imagine somebody who doesn't want that. I can't imagine it, right? Um, so I know I just talked a lot. So let me know how that lands, and
Yeah.
then we can move
Well,
into
I love
TM.
that, and I before we go into the next topic that I think is going to be fascinating, I want to touch back into that concept of boundaries, because that is one of the things that I see females in general, but especially moms and new moms and moms to be to a struggle with. And again, going into thinking about the society definition of it, we are not, I don't think that we are seeing it in the right way, because we talk about boundaries and then a lot of time we even think about barriers, walls. So then we feel guilty about putting some barrier, some distance between us and our family, between us and our partner, between sometimes us and our children. And I want to hear a little bit more from your perspective and your point of view into that, into what a boundary really is, and in your opinion, how we can create a boundary from a place of love and kindness. So we are still taking care of ourselves and our needs without feeling that we are credible or uh, be for doing it. So I was going to talk a little bit about that, about boundaries and how mamas can start playing with the idea of probably do starting small with the small boundaries that are not going to be that triggering, but start exercising that muscle, so after a while they can start feeling more confident and empowered to do the same process with a little more of a big deal for them, and more until they get to a point that they feel empowered into holding their own boundaries.
Yeah. Boundaries is such a broad topic, and deep work, right? Because it comes with the responsibility of holding space for the creation of boundaries against what our narratives and belief system is, right? So it's so unique for each person. So I will share with you some of the boundaries that I have created, especially when it comes to my child. So when I was early in motherhood and my daughter was younger, we actually had a house full of beautiful, wonderful family members. So we had three elders in our home that we were taking care of. My daughter was premature by 3 months, and so was in need of a lot of extra care. And my husband worked shift work. which means, sometimes he would work during the day, sometimes he would work mid shift, sometimes he would work nights. So, our schedule was always kind of like whack a mole, trying to figure out how to survive each week. And those obligations and daily needs definitely started taking a toll. And I started to realize that I needed personal time. I just needed personal time. And one of the struggles for me mentally was taking a break from my child, right? Because I just loved my child so much. I was an older mom as well. And because she was preemie too, um, I just felt like I needed to be there all the time. Because she was preemie, we had to be trained in CPR, which means, we couldn't let just anybody watch her, right? There was a lot of stress around all of that. Um, I struggled deeply with giving myself permission to create a boundary that said, I need to go to the store by myself, right? I need time with friends, not taking the kid, no play dates, just adult time, right? So creating that boundary of I need this kind of time by myself to replenish myself. And I would say that that's one of the smallest things we can do, even if it's a 10-minute walk outside, right? Being able to have a circle of support where someone, your partner, a family member, a neighbor, someone who's trusted for you to be able to, you know, watch your child for even the briefest amount of time so that you can take that baby step for yourself to give yourself something that you need, right? That can be the start of a boundary, right? I am holding this time sacred for myself because I want to see, even if you don't know that that's what you need, try it. You won't know until you try what helps kind of recenter you and kind of bring you back to self so that you can show up in the way that you want to with your family. And so I definitely did that. I made time. I wasn't sure that it was the answer. It was definitely part of my answer, but I felt terrible when I left. What mom can relate to that? Like when you have that, right? You have that contrarian thing going on in your head where you're like, "Yay, I finally am out." And then you get out to your dinner or your movie or whatever it is, and then you're wondering, "Is the baby okay? I wonder if I should call. Does the babysitter have any questions? Is my phone on silent? Do I need to turn it on? Do I need to check it?" Like you're just constantly worrying about all the things. And what I ended up telling myself was the the effort of me leaving and having time for myself is what I need to be able to show up best for my daughter. And the people with whom I am entrusting her care can also create an incredible bond and trust with her. Like if I'm the one who's always like, it's me, it has to be me, I'm the one, then in essence, I'm creating part of the problem. If I won't allow my daughter the experience of creating relationships with people that I say she can trust because I trust them. And so therefore I want her to create a bond with them. Um, then I'm creating the problem myself by being the only trustworthy, caregiver in her life. And really that narrative shift made wonders for me in creating that small boundary because it allowed me to do the boundary, to set the boundary, and then execute it in a way that made it not feel so hard. It took practice, of course, but over time, that's what I did. So that's just one example.
I love it, and thank you so much for that. And it's good, right? Because what when we start seeing it like that, we can start seeing it into boundaries are just something that we hold to allow us to have something that we need. So I need that time, I need that space, and from there, I know I cannot believe that we are getting closer to closing this episode. We have so much fun But one thing that I want to do before we close, before the final part, is that you give me maybe 5 or 6 examples. You already give me one of how a new mom can start working on becoming a selfish mom. So one of them is have some time for yourself no matter what every day. Give me a couple more of those for some, because some of us mamas are so away from that concept that they are like freeze. They're like, I don't even know how that will look like. So it's gonna talk
Mhm.
like, give me just like very concretely 3 or 4 or 5 ways that they can start becoming that selfish mama.
Yes, thank you. Um, so there's just so many for me. So one really easy one is to see how you can integrate even into daily life a way that kind of brings you back to center and grounds you. So, for example, everybody knows the overwhelming feeling of like housework and things that just need to get done in the house, right? Mine is dishes, people. I swear to God, I feel like the dishes never end. It just, there always seems to be dishes, and I'm dishes. I know it's laundry for a lot of people, but it's dishes for me. So when I'm doing dishes and I feel like I am just really resentful and I'm like, oh my God, can the dishes just please leave and never be a thing anymore? I enter the space thinking, okay, I don't want to feel like this about the dishes. What can I do to bring a different energy for myself while doing the dishes, right? And so it can be just practicing mindfulness in that moment. How does the warmth of the water feel on my hands? To feel the suds on my hands while I'm doing it, right? That is just a really quick example of being able to make something selfish. I am tuning in to how I feel in the moment, because negativity can breed more negativity, just as positivity breeds more positivity, right? And this is not about toxic positivity. This is literally me wanting to change my energy in the moment, right? Because I know it will serve me better moving forward through the day. So it is me choosing to be aware of how I feel in the moment and asking myself if I would like to change that. And if I do want to change it, what can I do to show up differently? Right? So making time for yourself if you can and as you can. Even if you can't and you're stuck doing the dishes, try to make it a mindful type of moment. Um, really find a circle of support. If you do not have a circle of support, please do what you can to create one. Having people that you can rely on and reach out to when you are going to have hard moments, because you will. You absolutely will. And it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just means you're a human. That is it. Right? So having that circle of support is really, really wonderful. So I hope
Thank you
that.
so, so much, Tina. And before we leave this amazing episode, why you don't just very briefly tell us how the mamas can learn more from you and reach out to you if they want to hear from you?
Yeah, they can go to the internet. My website is selfishmama.com. And I am on Facebook at Selfish Mama and Instagram at Real Selfish Mama.
There we go. So very easy for all of you selfish mamas out there. We hope that you get inspired to get back into that selfishness to help you to love and thrive your life and your kids. Tina, thank you so, so much for being here. It's been super fun. You are packed with wisdom and amazing advices. It was my honor to having you here. And for everybody, this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.